I'm Lucas. I'm business dev at Psychoforge, a Swiss indie studio developing the epic fantasy adventure Return to Nangrim. I'm in my role since a little bit over 14 months, I'd say, and I do the part of the marketing, a lot of the PR, so press outreach, publisher talks and meetings. So a lot of the business side, not the coder in that sense, but definitely I can tell you a lot about the game, and I'm happy to do so today.
Perfect, Lucas. So talk about this world you created. It's described as a survival-esque RPG. Is it like Lieu of Rust, or I see more of a Skyrim type of theme in it?
We like to say it's like a Hellblade meets Skyrim in Middle Earth. So Skyrim is definitely something we get a lot in feedback wise, but it's not something we're aiming for, as in we're not trying to build an open world RPG game. So we specifically say RPG elements. So there are certain elements in the game which are inspired by RPG, but it's not a pure RPG and it's not open world. But there's this, so let me explain the slogan Hellblade meets Skyrim in Middle Earth. So Hellblade, that's the kind of mission you're on. You go through, you walk through the game. It's not purely linear, but Hellblade is pretty linear. So the story is somewhat linear. You have a lot of side quests which you can dive into, and then so that's why Hellblade kind of. Then Skyrim is really the atmosphere, the immersiveness, the exploring things and finding new objects, the world kind of. And then third, Hellblade meets Skyrim in Middle Earth. That's obviously our Tolkien-esque inspiration. So our main character for Return to Nangrim is a dwarf. So you'll be playing a dwarf, and so that's where a lot of the inspiration is from.
So talk about some of the systems in here. Obviously, it's an open world that you explore and navigate through, but you also have like a lot of crafting, I would assume, because survival games are known for their unique and very deep crafting systems.
Currently, we're building our feature list. At the moment, the features which are most worked out are the forging, definitely. So you can go to the forge, you can smelt ores, you have to heat up the furnace, and finally you forge different tools. You can forge weapons, you can forge anything to help you progress in the game, or also you can repair items in the forge if you need to smelt a little things together or stuff like that. So that's one key mechanic. But to make it more of a survival game, there are enemies which you have to fight, which you have to beat, or which have to at least circumvent with your ingenuity, and you can maintain your stamina, or you have to build up your stamina throughout the game through staying healthy. So stay close to heat sources, to light, and also food. You have to maintain your health through eating.
Then I like how you mentioned like there's certain enemies you have to kill to get resources. What kind of enemies will we be fighting in this fantasy world? I saw a giant spider in your trailer.
The giant spider is confirmed. There are several different animals which are unconfirmed yet. The attentive fan has seen some animations of rats on our social media channels. There are larger animals, smaller animals that our players will have to fight, and we've also seen undead in our trailers, so there will be some kind of undead enemies as well, or combinations, whichever. I can't really discuss everything at the moment, but it'll be revealed step by step.
So you talk about some of the challenges, because you're also releasing this game in VR. Is it having a simultaneous VR release, or is it going to be first on PC and then on VR at a later date?
So the original game and the build we took to GDC in 2017, 2019 was a VR build. And we let our players play the Northern Outpost. So you could grab your torch, you'd have to walk a few meters. It was more like a walking simulator. And we've kind of changed the genre of the game. So now we're very much fantasy adventure. So story driven, very much background lore. And with that, VR has also moved into the background. However, since we're developing in Unity and we've also had a lot of, and we're building this immersive, we actually want it to be immersive. So the better the player will be able to immerse, the better we've achieved our goal. So going VR is definitely something we want to do. It won't be at the moment. It won't be for the release for PC, like not simultaneously, but definitely something we want to do. And also VR has changed a lot. So our VR system worked fine with the goggles, and you could use the pad to navigate. But nowadays VR players are used to a lot more VR. So you need the full motion control. You want to grab things, you want to break the rock, you want to use the axe and everything. So you need full VR support nowadays if you want to be state of the art, which we're aiming for. So that's why we're doing it later on. And maybe just one more comment on the immersiveness, which is part of building the universe, is creating an immersive experience for our players. And we've developed the map, we've developed storybooks, so that those are things which are already out there for our players to look at. It's like the storybook is like a self-narrated, you can click through it and it tells you the prequel or the story of why the player will return to Nangrim. And more storybooks are coming. Another one shall be released within the year. And then, so we want to give the player this opportunity to experience everything, the universe outside of the game. So we want to bring books. We have comics in the pipeline. We're creating, the music is like is a whole product of itself, and we want to deliver a whole experience. So that's why immersiveness is very important, to which VR is one topic, of course.
Is it difficult, from a financial business point of view, to keep funding coming in or keep it, on track when you have a game that originally plans to be VR and then you have to switch gears to PC release, and while simultaneously figuring out how to make it better in VR? Like it seems like that would be kind of like a tricky thing to do.
That's very right. The good thing is that we were still switching genre when we weren't dependent yet. So, and at the moment we don't have any contract signed yet. So we're still this agile team which can adapt to where the market leads us, or where we feel that there's the biggest potential. And definitely that is something which we'll lose once we have a publisher signed. But on the other hand, that will just make us go forward and finish the final game, instead of, in the worst case scenario would be changing genre one more time and making an RTS. But I think we're very far along the way to where we're going. So it's definitely going to be a fantasy adventure. And then, so in that state, funding is easier now. So will be easier since we have a build which is ready, which already shows what we're capable of doing. And then funding will be very, very much more direct and more milestone oriented than depending on which genre or something like that.
You guys are in Switzerland.
Sorry.
Yeah. What does that open up for you from a finance, like without going into too much detail, but just, I know you guys have a lot of programs and grants for video game development and funding, and your educational system is a lot different than the United States. What does that open up for you from a financial side, being able to develop a game in Switzerland with all these programs and grants being available to you, as opposed to somewhere else like the United States where they're kind of harder to come by?
So Back to Sweden. Sweden is really big in video games. Like I think they're probably one of the largest European players when it comes to creating video games. And I'm not really sure about their status because I know we in Switzerland are a lot less well governmentally funded than, for example, I know the direct comparison is with Germany. So I think in Germany we have 80 million people. In Switzerland we have a tenth of that, 8 million, and we have, I think we have like a 20th of the funding or so, or a 50th. I don't know. I think we should have 5 times more to be on the same level as Germany. So we have the government which supports, but you have to apply, and then you have to be chosen as one of 10. So we're in that lucky position that we were actually chosen by. It's called Pro Helvetia, which is the cultural foundation program for, yeah, it's for all that different kinds of arts, and visual arts is one part of it, one category in which you can apply for. And within that category you can then become part of that program. And if once you're in that program, you get mentoring, you have a little financial support of, I think it's 10 grand. Is it? Yeah, or 6. I don't know.
You don't have to go
like,
into details. You just get you get a little bit of funding. It's not much, but something, and yeah.
It's and very important for us was actually now at in the arena booth we got visibility. So with the Swiss games showcase that we were part of, we actually got to be at the indie arena booth, which gave us a lot of visibility, which is very important for us as an indie studio. And the industry is also changing a lot. So there's a motion going on at the moment. There was a letter signed by very many Swiss studios, or Swiss, obviously gaming studios, to get some movement going on, to get some better funding in the industry. But that's still work in progress.
Can you talk about, like, from that standpoint, like what do things like Fig and Kickstarter and Indiegogo open up for a small indie studio like yourself? And when do you determine when to go to that platform as opposed to looking for private funding or, like you said, government funding?
Kickstarters and Indiegogo, they need the right kind of audience. So your game or the game that you're trying to create needs to be able to play towards the audience which is on Kickstarter and on and I would say those are really rather true to the point indie projects with single developers or very small teams of maybe up to, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 people. As soon as the project becomes more ambitious, I think people expect a lot more, and they expect a big publisher to back you. And when you've gone across that level, it becomes hard to, because obviously you're also reaching for a lot higher goals in that case. And it becomes hard to actually have a Kickstarter campaign run. So reasons why we didn't want to do it is if we would not achieve our goals, that would give a bad image to a big publisher, which we want to get on board. And so it's always a question of where do you want to go and why do you want to go the path you want to go.
I know in some instances studios do Kickstarters just to show a big publisher that there is interest. Like maybe they know the game will cost more than $75,000, but they can take that information, go to publishers, say, look, we raised $75,000. There's definitely interest in this game that we're making.
Definitely. I think that's exactly what I was trying to also say before. So if you can prove your concept is working on a Kickstarter, obviously you can get publishers to back you. But the amount of Kickstarter campaigns which are successful versus those which are semi or not successful is just very hard to make sure that you are successful. So in an optimal case, obviously you'd get your proof that you have a big community out there, that they're ready to pay and back you, and then the publisher has less say in kind of, I don't know, in a revenue share or whichever, because you've already proven that your concept is working. But on the other hand, what happens if you don't get the Kickstarter to run? Then the question is, how much? Maybe the publisher can come in and expect a higher rev share, and that's just, you're just giving him a space for argumentation. But maybe one thing that I was thinking about, Kickstarters, I said small teams before, they would also work on projects, on singular projects. So maybe for funding of one storybook, or for a certain kind of asset, or an additional weapon or level or stuff like that, which you can, where you really have these goals where you want to, how are they called?
Tiers.
Tiers, and then you have those long goals, or long shot goals.
Yeah, stretch goals.
Stretch goals, exactly. Yeah. So where you really have those kind of stretch goals, then that works well.
You also said you work in marketing. I'm curious, what are some of the challenges in getting an indie game out there? Because I think the last time I checked analytics on Steam is there's over 100 games every week released on Steam every week. I don't know if that includes early access, but it's a lot. That's a lot of games. How do you rise above all that noise to show people that you're also making something unique and fun?
I think you have to, first of all, you have to convince very well. So once you have your presence set out on your Steam page, you have to drive traffic to there and make sure that as many people as possible which see your Steam page actually go there and wishlist. And then it's on Steam, it's obviously playing the algorithm. So there is some kind of threshold where once you've reached that level of wish lists and sales, that you can actually get to the front page and the algorithm plays in your favor. And as an indie, that's what we'll have to do at release. And by the time that we release, that threshold just has to be reached. And we don't know ourselves whether it's what the amount of wish lists it is. There are some estimations. Chris Sukovsky does a lot of wish lists and Steam talks and also information stuff. So follow social media, get everybody to follow everywhere, and build a hype.
Yeah, I think people underestimate how much just wish listing the game helps the developer. Like, even if you don't buy it, just wish listing it, like showing that you have interest in it, helps you tremendously in that algorithm.
Definitely. Wish listing helps, following helps more, buying obviously helps best. So it's Steam, in the end, Steam gives you the visibility for that one page. So obviously on Xbox, you have to be on the front page of the Xbox. For PS, you have to be in the store, in the PS store, and same counts for all the other platforms. So you need to get that visibility, since you don't have that marketing power where you can put or throw millions of dollars on ads in stores and on supermarkets and on the street or stuff like that. So
yeah, I heard a rumor that a certain influencer charges $300,000 an hour to stream a game. I think that's a deterrent so people don't hire him, but if someone really does want to, he'll get that fee. But yeah, I think that's really interesting, because that can be millions of dollars to have some interest to play your game for a few hours. It's insane.
I mean, Steam and influencer outreach is very important. That is part of the marketing campaign, definitely. Just as an indie, you can barely charge, or you can barely pay for an influencer. So we haven't until now done any paid influencers outreaches, and we're fine. So we still get big influencers to cover us, because either for some reason that game drops into their email, or there are 10 or 15 people in their community which are like, hey dude, have you seen Return to Nangrim? And then at some point that the noise level is loud enough for him or for her to go there and check it out themselves, and then they actually do something on Return to Nangrim, and that's what we have to achieve. We just have to mobilize all the small people to rise above, and then we can go viral.
Now, going back to the game, why dwarves? It's a dwarven adventure, specifically dwarves. What made your team and you guys decide to do dwarves out of all the fantasy races?
So that kind of brings me to the whole development of Arafin. And Arafin is the whole universe. So in the universe, we have dwarves, we have humans, we have elves, and we have humans, dwarves, elves, and the Uturi. And these 4 races are spread around the universe. And the dwarves are the ones which we put the most emphasis on when our developers started building the universe. I wonder why. I think it might be because they consider them as underrepresented heroes. So elves, we have a lot of elven fans trolling us on our email and stuff like that, telling us there are no elven games, you have to make an elven game, add elves and stuff like that. But I think the dwarves are really the ones which are a little bit underrepresented. And I think the dwarven community, there's a huge fan base for dwarven games, and they're longing for this kind of big dwarven game. Yeah, and so that's the race which is the most elaborate. So there are tons of family trees and clans and different. There are the Woodbeards and the Stonebeards and the Whitebeards and the Snowbeards and all kinds of dwarven clans which they've come up, or which our founders have come up with. And now we're only writing this one little story, which is Return to Nangrim, on the dwarven ancestry kind of. But there might be like in a follow-up game, there can be elves, there can be humans, there can be the Uturi clans.
You talk about some of the environments we'll explore. I see a lot of frozen tundra and caverns. What are some of the more interesting places we'll explore in your game?
In the long run, the player will explore Nangrim. So obviously, Return to Nangrim is the player will explore Nangrim, and Nangrim is the capital of the dwarves, where the Stonebeards used to live. So that capital was overrun by the Uturi, which managed to unite after centuries of fights amongst themselves, and the gates of Nangrim fell, and the Stonebeards are now either dead or spread out in the lands of Arafin without having a home, and the dwarves have lost their capital and their
Uturi. So talk about these Uturi. Like, what kind of are they? Creatures of the night? Are they like drow? Are they like goblins? Like, paint us a picture.
I can send you a picture. I'm not the very artistic type. They're a very rough kind of creature. They live in the wastelands, so they have to survive very scarce resources. But they're a strong warrior tribe. Not very intelligent.
So strong and very brutish.
Yes, strong and very brutish. Definitely the fighters in the lands of Arafin, but they are very they fight against each other. So they can't unite. And only the first one to actually unite the Uturi was Rogash. And the reason Rogash managed to unite the Uturi is because he's not only Uturi. He's also, I think I can say that, he's also half elf. So he's wiser, but he's skinnier than most of the Uturi, but he manages to unite them, and therefore they can conquer Nangrim.
All I'm thinking about is the apes together strong thing from the movies. Have you seen them?
Yeah, yes. But I wasn't. I hadn't finished about talking about the locations in Nangrim. So you have the outposts, the northern and the southern outposts. Then you have the halls of Nangrim, so the throne halls. You have the mines, and then you have different locations like the tavern, the areas where the workers were. So whether it was whether it was the forge or can't think of anything else right now.
Well, how big, in terms of scale, how big is this world that you'll explore? Like, can you give us a sense of kilometers of how large this world is that we'll be able to openly explore and discover? Because it sounds like maybe like from in terms from like going a straight line across it may not be very huge, but like it sounds like there's a lot of sub levels because you are dwarves and dwarves do live in mines, so and mountains. So it sounds like there's going to be a lot of verticality in the game in terms of mountains and caves and crevasses, crevasses.
You'll definitely be exploring the mountain. That's for sure. So there's no like open world where you'll have like huge forests which you can walk through in all directions. It'll be like closed dungeon, not cells, but like
instances.
Rooms
so
and
like
halls.
yeah. Instances, like almost levels, like hub levels inside the world that you will explore.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Where can people go to support your game? You have a limited demo running right now that they can play on Steam, and they can download that for free. And what plans are there after this? Are you guys going into early access? Because the game's not even coming out until sometime next year, 2022. So in the meantime, where can they go to find more information? Where can they go to, and where can they go to support your game?
To support our game, the first thing you should do is go on Steam wishlist and follow, and then you can follow us across all social media. So we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we're on Instagram as well, and somewhat regularly posting across all channels. We have an Imgur, we have a Reddit, which aren't very large, or you can't on Imager you can't really follow, so that doesn't really work. But you can join the Reddit. And to learn more about Psychoforge and Return to Nangrim, I can definitely recommend looking at the world map, which is already available. And it's interactive. You can move it around. You see clouds flying across it. You can find little locations and their descriptions on the map, and look at the first storybook, the prequel, as the prequel of the